welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Davius.
This is episode number 40. We did have a maintenance patch this week, but it's pretty boring stuff. Some bug fixes. Major Gallop, the mount speed buff that you get from Rapids. Apparently it was bugged. I wasn't even aware of it, but apparently the last few weeks it's been slower than normal. So they fixed that, and Major Gallop now goes the normal speed, so your mounts should be a bit faster now. I didn't even notice, but they all take a faster mount speed. That's nice.
Won't complain about that.
Now this one was literally game breaking. You couldn't sit in chairs, so they've apparently fixed that where you can sit in chairs now. So thank goodness. Thank goodness they got that one.
Everybody
fixed.
calm down. Everybody stop the riots.
Yeah,
it's gonna be okay.
So we got our chairs back. Just kind of some random crash fixes and other just minor random stuff. Nothing really to write home about. The one notable thing that's not there is still no refund for those skill points that were spent for Werewolf and Soul Trap. They did mention that, like Gina Bruno, the community manager, made a separate post saying like, hey, they're still working on that fix that's still going to be coming in the future. They just haven't quite figured out how to do it yet.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, and I'm just speaking personally here, but with it being this long, like I've already found new skill points for the skills I need. I've already leveled the skills up, so I guess it's nice they're still working on it, but I've kind of already moved past it at this point.
Yeah, at least it's not reverting your progress anymore on that skill.
That was the biggest part of it. They fixed that. At this point, I guess it'll be nice if I get skill points in the future, but.
Now, I guess if you're a werewolf and you have literally every possible skill point in the game, then you might be in trouble.
You might be in trouble.
Right. Yeah, I guess you could go to the Student Shrine and refund some. That's always good old students.
Good old students, always there.
Always there for us. That's the maintenance patch, pretty much. I mean, there's some other random stuff. You can, listeners, you can check that out and read through it if you want. There's like some stuff related to antiquities and a few other little things here and there. Let's just move right along and talk about what we've been up to this week. A little bit of PvP. We had a Goon Night this past Friday night where we were doing some MagCro and StamDK action. I think was the bulk of our night that night, right?
Yeah, that's been kind of our flavor of the month, if you will. Yeah. With BGs right now, it's in really we have a nice little setup because we kind of alternate StamDK MagCros. We kind of both have healing MagCros and both have pretty hard hitting StamDKs.
Yeah, it works out really, really nicely. They do pair together really well. Yeah, man, I really cannot get enough of my Magic and Necromancer right now. I'm just gonna start talking about this build right now because it's really all I've been thinking about, and really this is pretty much the only build I've played with this week. So it's the only one I'm going to really have a lot to say about. But what's really cool is I really am enjoying it, and I think that's kind of worth emphasizing because since the Necromancer has been released, I've really had a very hard time vibing with the Magicka variant of the Necromancer. Just really, I don't know, I just haven't felt good about the skill set that they have and how they play and the mechanics of the class. It just never really felt fun to me. And so my MagCro really has just kind of been chilling and collecting dust because I've never just been interested in logging in with it. But this build, I think, really is doing it for me. It's really drawing me into the character, and I really am excited to log in with this character each day and play with her. And I think the reason for that is because this build kind of has all the hallmarks of what I consider makes a good build. It is thematically appropriate. So that means, like the aesthetics of the build really are very fitting for the class and for my concept of the character and who she is.
That's important.
Very important.
That's important to me and you. You gotta. Everything with the build has to feel right in order for it to play right.
Oh yeah, the theme has got to be there. Absolutely. So it's thematically appropriate. The build is also mechanically synergistic. Using big words today.
So. Whoa, spell those. Hey, hold on now.
I love a build that really is like only this class can pull this build off as well as they do, right? Like maybe this build would work fairly okay on a Dragon Knight or a Nightblade or whoever else. Maybe just about any class could pull it off, but no one's going to be able to pull it off as well as a Magic and Necromancer, right? This is made for their skill set. So I like that. And the third kind of hallmark is that it's actually effective. It's a good build that doesn't suck. So it's thematically appropriate, mechanically synergistic, and effective.
I can validate that it is effective.
Yeah. I've really been enjoying it, and she really can handle herself in pretty much everything, like you were just saying. That's kind of another point I wanted to make here, is that with BGs the way they are now, you can only queue for random BG modes. You never know if you're going to get a flag game or a capture the relic or a death match on very rare occasion. And what's nice about this build is no matter what mode I get, I feel like I have a role to fill and I have value to add in one way or the other. So I've really been enjoying that about the build. So a reminder of what the build is. I talked about it quite a bit on the last episode, but a reminder of the gear. It's 5 pieces Ice Furnace, 5 pieces Savara's Scales, 2 pieces Mighty Chudan. It's a 5 light, 2 heavy setup. The race is Argonian, not that that really matters all that much. And the build is really all about doing what a MagCro does best, which is 2 things, I think. Dealing lots of AoE damage and also providing lots and lots of crowd control. Those are kind of the 2 MagCro things in my mind, and that's exactly what this build is set up to do. I'm also trying out some new skills. So I've slotted the Skeletal Arcanist, the damage dealing minion. And that was one, I kind of surprised myself with that one because I've always been really reluctant to use this ability. In the past, I was just convinced that I didn't like it. And I didn't like how it worked and that sort of stuff. But I think, honestly, at that time, I was trying to fit the MagCro into a box that it didn't fit into. You know, I was trying to play it. I wasn't really playing the class the way the class was designed to be played, I don't think. And now that I'm kind of getting a better feel for what this class is all about, the value of this ability, the Skeletal Arcanist, is clear. It's pretty clear. So what's nice about it is that it provides yet more AoE damage, right? The Skeletal Arcanist does a AoE lightning damage attack every 2 seconds. And so that's just layered on top of my Ice Furnace and my Savara's Scales, and Blast Bones is another AoE attack. And now the Skeletal Arcanist on top of that. Not even counting Goliath form, I basically have this constant cloud of about 10k DPS that's just surrounding me all the time. Any enemy that comes in our vicinity, they're automatically having to deal with mitigating 10k DPS before anyone even starts focusing them.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite things of just kind of partnering with you and playing with this build, is that it almost seems like you've found a loophole here. We talk in Battlegrounds all the time that there's kind of certain focuses and roles that your character kind of goes for, that and you have to make sacrifices when you kind of go in one area, and you just kind of handle the sacrifices the best you can. And I feel like this character is almost like a loophole, just because the amount of AoE damage is severe, and as you mentioned, the crowd control is just kind of this extra layer, and then the heals are just off the charts. It's almost like there's one additional skill that this character shouldn't have, but you're getting all 3 of those areas.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with, and it's I think especially now with this Skeletal Arcanist, this extra minion being thrown into the mix, it really adds to this sense of kind of cacophony and pandemonium that's just in my immediate vicinity. There's just, like you said, there's the Wall of Frost, there's the remote totem, there's all this garbage on the ground that nobody wants to deal with, plus this, like I kind of described earlier, this cloud of damage that's just surrounding everything, and these minions running all over the place with Blast Bones, the Skeletal Arcanist, and the Intensive Mender. that's 3 targetable pets that are up all the time, so it's just more cacophony, more kind of just chaos that the enemies have to deal with, and it's perfect for this conception of my character of it's just this walking disaster zone that nobody wants anything to do with. And I love that. I love that about. It's perfect for the theme, like I was saying, the theme of the character.
Yeah, I love the joke that when I run with my StamDK, my StamDK is my ultimate build that leaps all over the place. And it should do dizzying swing, but when it runs with this character, you're throwing so much AoE out there that it's really just leap, and then it's like execute, leap, execute. I mean, when I'm running with this character, execute becomes my spammable just because they have so much pressure on them from all these things that are hitting them.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, just imagine that there's an invisible person just spamming dizzying swing on all of your enemies on top of whatever you're actually throwing at them. It's kind of what it's like. Now, I have sacrificed a little bit of healing. So to get the Skeletal Arcanist, I had to get rid of Illustrious Healing, the ground AoE Resto Staff ability. I feel like that's a pretty minor sacrifice because that being a static ground effect, there's a lot of the time where the fight is moving around a lot and my allies just aren't standing in it all that much. So I feel like a pretty minor sacrifice there, and I'm getting a lot out of that Skeletal Arcanist, so I really don't feel too bad about that. And then another one that I'm trying, I'm not totally sure about this one yet, I'm just trying it out. But Necrotic Potency, that's the one where you drain corpses and it gives you like 6 ultimate per corpse and a heal over time. And that heal over time is extended for each additional corpse there is around. I think it can you can consume up to 6 corpses at a time.
Yep, that's one of my favorite Necro abilities.
It's a great ability. It's one I've always been interested in. Like I've always had my eye on it and kind of looking for a way to work it into a build. So right now I've taken Braided Tether, the healing tether ability. I've taken that off my bar and put Necrotic Potency in its place. So that's yet another healing ability I've gotten rid of for now. I'm just trying it out. But I'm not really removing support though, because Necrotic Potency gives me ultimate, which in turn is more Resto Staff ultimates.
Right.
In my mind is what that's all about. Which I think is probably more valuable than having one additional heal over time. I already have the Intensive Mender and Radiating Regen. I feel like that covers that base just fine. If I can have that Resto ult locked and loaded anytime we need it, I think there's going to be a lot more value in that. Not to mention, it's going to get me into that Bone Goliath form a lot more often as well. And that's like going to be another 4K worth of AoE DPS to add on top of my whole Nightmare Zone situation. So I feel like conceptually this could be a great skill to use. I'm just going to lose out on a little bit of healing over time, but I think it's probably going to work out. We'll see. Yeah,
this build it's great. We always joke about how fun it is to run with a support character if you have a hard-hitting character. Well, this one's extra fun because it's not like a single focus hard-hitting, but the damage numbers are way up there. When I'm running with my hard-hitting StamDK or one of my other kind of damage-focused characters, a lot of the time this character will actually do more overall damage than my characters. It's pretty common.
Yeah, it's a lot of overall damage, and this character is the queen of assists as well. Like, you'll look at the end of a match, you'll tally up all the kills that like our entire team has gotten. Maybe the team has gotten, let's say, 50 kills, and then Despair here has gotten like 55 assists. It's like she has a hand in like every kill that has happened during that match.
She was a part of all this, of all the deaths that happened.
That I just love the concept. She's just like this. I'm just imagining she's just like walking through a field and like all the flowers are wilting and the grass is dying and just it's just this gross nastiness she's throwing everywhere. And I love how she's kind of the opposite of my Magicka Warden. I think we've talked about it before, but Magicka Warden's kind of similar. She has a lot of AoE as well, but her AoE is all about healing and nourishing and fortifying her allies. And I like how they're both these support builds that also deal a lot of damage, but they go about it in kind of opposite ways. It's kind of cool.
Big rivalry between those two.
Yeah, yeah, really, in my mind, it really is. Like, which one do I want to log in with? It's kind of those two are my hot ones right now. But yeah, this week it's been mostly about the MagCro. On the topic of necromancers, I see here, Davis, that you have your StamCro on the list of things you want to talk about today. What's going on with this dude?
So my stamina necromancer, this is my character that does the sword singers, which is just the straight 600 weapon damage to two-handed abilities, and then its front bar was just all two-handed abilities. Now
I hear the word "was."
Well, so there's been some changes. Okay. I dropped the Daring Corsair set, which was the 5-piece. It lowered, it was a 10% cost reduction to your weapon abilities, which I was a little bummed to drop it just because it was such a beautiful pairing for this character. Because it dropped your weapon damage, your weapon cost by 10% of your weapon abilities, and it also gave you minor heroism. So it was also kind of an ultimate generation as well. But there's been big buffs to sustain, and so damage is kind of higher than ever. And so where this build used to be kind of a great combo with these two sets, when I was playing with it recently, it just wasn't hitting hard enough in Battlegrounds right now.
You really got to crank up the damage these days.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of the strategy that the game is, with Battlegrounds especially. But I really kind of sat back and thought, all right, what can I do to make this character? His theme has always been he's been a real hard hitter with that Sword Singers setup, and so I just kind of went all in on the hard hitting with this character. And
okay, I like the sound of that.
Yep. So he's a hard hitter, all right. So I actually, I had a set of automatons on my Stamina Warden, and so I actually stole the automaton set, and I've actually put it on this build now. Okay. And so it actually, automatons is the 5-piece, adds 400 weapon damage to your physical damage abilities. Uh-huh. So pairing that with the 600 weapon damage to your two-handed abilities, basically all my two-handed, which is pretty much my front bar, they're all getting 1,000 damage buff.
That's nice.
Yeah, so a pretty huge buff. And I went ahead and dropped Bloodspawn, and I actually also stole from my Stamina Warden the Celestrix set. And once again, that was just kind of throwing something on here that's just going to be a little bit more pressure, a little bit more hard hitting. This set doesn't really have a built-in stun. It has Dizzy Swing, which you can get a stun, but that Celestrix is just kind of an extra way to get a stun when needed. And so a lot of damage on this character, and I've also spec'd it a lot of weapon damage. So I got the weapon damage up to about 4,200 fully buffed, plus the 1,000 damage buff. To the physical damage abilities, the two-handed abilities.
And so CP, that's a lot.
It is a whole lot. So in no CP, in the Dizzy Swing tooltip is about 11,500.
Oh boy.
And then in the onslaught
that's like as much damage as an ultimate does.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. He is back to his heavy hitting ways. The onslaught is 15,000, which anybody who knows onslaught, it's probably onslaught's not as common as it was there for a while. But the big thing about onslaught is it deals that to all enemies in it.
It's an AOE attack.
Exactly. So they're all taking that 15,000. So this guy's back to his heavy hitting ways. I did have to sacrifice a little bit on stamina recovery. He runs pretty low stamina recovery. But I kind of, utilized your, there's an ability that you've talked about that's kind of an under-talked ability, underrated ability, the Mortal Coil.
Oh, yeah, for sustain.
Yes.
That'll do it.
The stamina morph of this is huge. You get basically 1,200 stamina recovery over 12 seconds while you're siphoning a corpse. And the range is 28 meters. So in a battleground, I mean, you basically can almost always have this up. And so with that extra sustain from that ability, I was able to be okay. It's able to run a lot lower stamina recovery than it usually does. And so it is all about hard hitting. The dizzy swing is pretty ridiculous. I haven't been able to do a whole lot of testing with the character, but this is definitely back to my hardest hitting character now.
So you think that this character hits harder than your StamDK using Malakath?
I probably have to do a little bit more testing, but from the initial results, I would say yes. It's hard to compare just because my StamDK gets that leap so incredibly quick that the reason why he seems like he hits so hard is just because he's leaping so much.
Yeah.
And a Malakath with the leap obviously is great. But everything this character is going to be doing is going to be hitting kind of that level.
Looking forward to, after we're done recording, jumping into some BGs and seeing how many skulls that dude can crack.
old Bear Skull the Nord, the stamina necromancer.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to see, do some more testing to see kind of what his damage level be. But
surprising to me to see you kind of move away from ultimate regeneration. You're,
I know.
It's very out of character for you.
It was a little wild. It really, like I said, you gave me this advice a long, long time ago in the game, but really the best thing to do, a lot of times when you're building a character and you have a build and you're kind of struggling with it, it's usually because you're probably trying to reach in a little bit too many directions. And so with this character, it just kind of reminded, the basis of this character is he's just straight up hard hitting. So what can I do to kind of double down on that? And that's kind of where the automatons came in, is that he's already got a flat 600 weapon damage going. So why not double down on that, throw the automatons on here and get that up to 1,000, and then just kind of restructure the build where it's just all about that heavy hitting. And it really kind of made the build come together. And with that mortal coil, kind of find a way to get sustain. And he's, it's pretty tanky because obviously, he's got the Spirit Guardian, with being a necromancer. He's got, vigor, and then the back bar ultimate I use is actually the Goliath. So, if there's a tricky situation, I can drop that and kind of get myself out of a situation that might be a death type situation.
Yeah, and he's a Nord, and
well, of course,
Nords are inherently tanky. Necromancers are inherently tanky as well. So I imagine he's tough to take down in general.
Yeah, and like most of my characters, usually I try to go for that the no CP stats of 25,000 health, 25,000 stamina, and this guy's right in that range. He's 25,000 health, 25,300 stamina.
Yeah, it's very healthy.
Yeah, so he's right where I like him to be.
Awesome, man. By the way, there's a thunderstorm happening where I live, so if you're hearing weird noises in the background, that's what it is. It's not severe. There's no danger. It's just happening outside the window here. You'd said, actually, you gave me a perfect transition here. You'd said that you've kind of been narrowing your focus on your StamCro and really just making it all about doing a lot of damage, and that's really what it's all about. And I've really been thinking a lot about my StamDK here lately, and I've talked about before how now that grouping has returned to Battlegrounds, I've been interested in this character, and it's easier to play with this character now because she really needs group support. And another really nice side effect of having that group support back is it makes it a lot easier to make decisions in the build, like as far as like abilities that I'm using and traits that I choose and stuff like that. With this build, Bad Sally, my StamDK, I'm just assuming that support is going to be present, right? If I'm not going to have a healer present, I'm not going to play with this build. Plain and simple.
I would argue, and I think you would agree with me on this, the StamDK, that's the class that benefited the most by group BGs coming back.
Yeah, I think so too. And not only does it make them more viable than they were before, but like the support elevates them more so than other classes, I think.
Yes.
Like a StamDK with good support behind them is nigh unstoppable.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, and I've really been enjoying theory crafting with this character because it is easier to make these decisions. Like for example, there's a flex spot that I've always been struggling with Like, what ability do I want to use here? Do I want to use Cauterize for the extra heals? Or maybe Obsidian Shield to make my heals stronger? Maybe I'll use the Flappy Wings to mitigate projectiles. None of them really do a lot for me, you know? And so now that I can just kind of count on having group support there, I can use that flex spot for something that'll give me more damage, or maybe just make the build play more comfortably, like Shuffle, for example, for snare removal. Sure. Which I know the Flappy Wings will give me snare removal, but that's a very expensive Magicka costing ability, and this build can't afford the Magicka. But anyway, just in general, it's just a lot easier to theorycraft for this character, because I'm just like you with your StamCro. I'm just zeroing in on that focus, and this character is just all about dealing a whole lot of damage, and we're not really worried about anything else. It's just vigor and rally. That's our survivability right there, you know, other than having a healer present.
and cracking skulls.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, that's valid too. Like, damage as defense is valid too. You know, if I can kill somebody faster than they can kill me, that works.
Yeah.
A reminder of the gear, it's Unleash Terror, Bloodspawn, the Maelstrom Two-Hander, the Master's Dual Wield, the Malakath Band of Brutality, and two pieces Trainee. So that gear has been locked in for a little while now, and that's not going to change. It's just a lot of damage. I still have a lot of transmuting to do. I have like 2 body pieces and all 3 weapons I'm going to transmute. The weapons, they're all maces and mauls, like the Maelstrom Two-Hander, the Master's Dual Wield, all maces and mauls, so I get passive penetration from all of those. And I think I'm going to transmute all of them to Sharpened to get even more penetration, because a lot of the damage is coming from procs, and penetration is really the best way to increase the amount of damage those procs are dealing, outside of the Malakath band, which I'm already using.
Yeah, that's a real kind of nice hidden part to that build of how, you know, one extra little cherry on top for how hard it hits people.
Yeah, what's nice is, I mean, this build is already, like, if I could make 0 changes to this build and just leave it exactly as it is right now, it would still be totally amazing. You know, I would have a fantastic time with it. I'm just putting these little finishing touches on there just because I can. It's probably not actually necessary, but I'm gonna do it anyway, you know.
So, it's gonna happen. Is there a more valuable currency in the game right now than transmute crystals?
No,
I would argue no.
Way.
Those
Absolutely
are
not.
that is the best thing to have right now is transmute crystals.
Yeah, and even with that cap increased, I'm still struggling to just have enough in general.
Yeah, I'm hoping, you know, I think we'll eventually catch up, but there's just more and more, you know, there's more room to use different traits in PvP and Battlegrounds. Yeah. And so it's more and more we're kind of having to use these transmutes on these characters and drop impin a little bit more to get a little bit extra from a different trait. Yeah.
I know it's super old news by now, but that's one of my favorite changes that they made, is adding that base crit resist and really freeing us up to make some creative decisions on the traits that we use. Like my StamSork is using 3 different traits in his armor, you know. Like, you can get really detailed with that stuff.
That's awesome. It's really opened the door for some creativity, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm excited about Sally. I haven't really gotten to play with her all that much this week, but she's next in line. Next to my MagCro, Sally, the StamDK, is kind of next in line for me to put a lot of hours into and really make some stuff happen. I think just like you said, me on this character, you on probably your MagCro healer, and then vice versa, me on my MagCro, you on your StamDK. That's probably going to be a pretty sweet situation for the next several weeks, I think.
It has worked well so far.
So, when you were talking about your StamCro earlier, you were talking about shifting some gear away from your Stamina Warden, Bear Claw, and that dude's been locked in for a long time, so I'm very curious to hear what the deal is with this guy.
Old Bear Claw the Nord, my Stamina Warden. You know, he, as you said, he's kind of been locked in as I thought he was going to be kind of my safe build, just stash him away. Whenever I want to grab just kind of a safe build, I can always play on him. He's never been the hardest hitter. he's never been the best healer or support, or he's never been the quickest, but he kind of is just a little bit, he's just enough of everything that he's a good kind of team player. He can heal himself. He's taking enough to take care of himself.
Very well-rounded.
Yeah, he can hit hard enough to really, he can get some kills every now and then. He can help pressure enemies. And so, the heavy armor bow build is just the uniqueness that's really defined him. And so when I stole those pieces from him, I really kind of had to think, all right, how am I gonna keep the uniqueness to this build or this character? And that's kind of been, kind of diverging a little bit. That's been really a lot of fun for me this week because, in past weeks, I've kind of focused on existing builds and just kind of tweaking them just right to the changes. But the StamCro and the StamDen have been kind of almost rebuilds, the massive changes and kind of the new theory crafting. So I've had a lot of fun with those recently. And where the StamCro is probably all the smart decisions, the StamDen is all of the fun decisions.
Okay.
This character is fun first, but effective. But, whereas the StamCro is all about, he's going to get kills. He's going to do a lot of damage. This character is just going to be a heck of a lot of fun to play with.
Okay.
So let me ease your worry. He is still a heavy armor bow build. I can't lose that.
Thank goodness.
That is what defines him. So he's still rocking heavy armor. He still has a bow, so don't you worry. He still has animal companion abilities across the front bar.
Okay.
So the uniqueness to him, the quirkiness is still there, but now it's just kind of doubled down. So he is wearing all new sets.
Totally new bear claw.
Yeah. So one new set is he has inherited Davis's Cold Harbor's favorite set. So he's rocking a 5-piece Cold Harbor's favorite.
I had a feeling that set wasn't going to stay in the bank for long.
I love that set too much. So the other 5-piece set he's running is Unfathomable Darkness.
Okay.
And then the monster set that I threw on him is actually Maw of the Infernal.
Oh, no. Why? No.
So this is the one. I think you're starting to sense the build here. If you guys know the set, you're kind of sensing the idea here. This is the one that when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, you have a 33% chance to summon this Daedrith that he's massive, he gets in your way, and he hits you pretty hard. He hits for 4,700 damage. It's flame damage, and he has all these different types of attack. But every 2 seconds, he's hitting for 4,700 damage. And so I don't have this build fully Battleground ready yet, but I have taken it around and done some PvE stuff with it. And it is so much fun. I highly recommend how much fun this build is.
Do not take this man's recommendation. We don't need any more Maw of the Infernal running around in BG.
This StamDen has become the Warden version of the Petsork build. If you really think about it,
you're still using the bear, right?
He's got the bear out. So he's got the bear pet. He's got his Netch pet out. He's got 4 crows flying around at all times, swirling around him. He's got the little baby guar that will randomly pop up. And he has the Daedrith that he's summoning. And so when I've run around in PvE with this, it is just this army of creatures that are just always following him around. It is a lot of fun. If anybody ever played Diablo 2 back in the day, this is basically the Druid version of a Diablo 2 character in Elder Scrolls.
Okay.
It has all of these summoning and all these pets just kind of roaming around. And it kind of really, the damage really adds up. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts because there's so many different things hitting. The character itself doesn't have a whole lot of weapon damage, but you've got the Daedrith out there hitting people. You've got the bear hitting people. You've got these crows flying around and doing hits. Every now and then the Guar Honor will pop up, deal pretty heavy AoE.
Well,
and then
what's nice about those armor sets is that's all proc damage, and it has nothing to do with your character's offensive stats. Like those are set values. It'll deal the exact same amount no matter what.
Exactly. And so with all of those things dealing all this damage, and even a Warden with low weapon damage, if you're throwing a sub assault, I use the growing swarm, sub-assault, the cutting dive, and that's like just enough pressure where it's all of these things hitting that the damage really kind of adds up. And so really this build, it's still enough damage. It's not enough damage to really focus somebody. It's not going to be like a one-on-one. This character, this character is going to take someone down, but it still fulfills kind of what the character has always been. It's just still a great team player. With this character on your team and all this stuff flying around and dealing all this damage, it's kind of like a unique way of AoE damage. But just a lot, all these, different body blocks and this different stuff. I've done a couple battlegrounds. Like I said, the build's not really ready. But the few battlegrounds I've done, it's just people just see all this stuff and they're just like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. There's a lot of stuff.
That's exactly how it is
with this character.
That's exactly how it is with my MagCro. Like, it's funny when we complain so much about Capture the Relic, but one thing that I do like about Capture the Relic on my MagCro is I always defend the relic on that character, and it just takes like a couple of times for enemies to come try to take our relic, and then they're just like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
I end up getting really bored in those matches because in the beginning I'll get like a couple of people that come try to take the relic, and then they just learn that that's not happening, and then I'm just standing there by myself for the rest of the match, pretty much.
That's actually, your MagCro is one of the characters I'm really excited to run this build with out of the gates.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
There's going to be, think of how many extra little creatures and summons are just going to be running all around.
Pandemonium.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, just to kind of give a visual. When all the procs are going and all the summons are out there, there's 8 additional minions following around this character.
Wow.
Just roaming around it. So when I kind of pieced all these together and kind of figured out that this is gonna be what it was, I was very happy when I tested it. It was exactly what I wanted. It's like this just army of all these little creatures that it just kind of runs over stuff in its path. So
what's cool too is I remember when you first made this character, this is basically the idea the original build idea you had for this guy. Like you wanted to have all these like summons and like animals as much as possible. You even wanted to use the bear in the beginning, and then you decided against it, but now you've returned to the bear. It's got to come full circle. It's really cool.
Yeah. It is. It's really cool. You're exactly right. He's kind of come to his origins, and it's kind of finally worked out. It's exactly kind of what I wanted to be from the very beginning, and it has definitely come full circle to where he's exactly what I want him to be.
That's cool.
But yeah, I can't wait for you to see it in person. It's quite a sight to see, just all this stuff going around.
We'll have to try those 2 out tonight. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, it is a lot of fun, and I still use the Black Rose dual wield on the back bar.
Okay.
Just to kind of, I still use the Deadly Cloak. That's the one that, with that Black Rose dual wield, when you use Blade Cloak, you take 6% less damage and increases your damage by 6%. So it's still, the original idea of all the animal companions and all this percentage increase to damage is still there. So it still does decent damage, and with all this stuff flying around, it's just kind of this pandemonium, little tiny army roaming around the battleground.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I can't wait to finish that build out and test that one. The other thing that I've been kind of working on, and I've talked about this build, is my StamPlar build. And, we know how much you love StamPlar. So that's been kind of my encouragement to get my StamPlar working and finish this build out.
Okay. To please me. Okay. I like it.
There you go. Yeah. So I've been doing the Vatishran Arena, and that was kind of the last piece that I wanted to put on this build to kind of get it where it's exactly where I wanted it. So I'm using the 2-hander, and I'm using it on my back bar, and I can't explain how perfect it works on this build. It is such a nice little addition. And so what that is the 2-hander is the Frenzied Momentum is the name of it. And while you have momentum, which is basically your rally, while that is active, whenever you cast a stamina ability, you generate these stacks, and every one of these stacks, you gain 38 weapon damage, and you can get up to 5 of them. And then on top of that, you can do a heavy attack, where it deals 9,000 physical damage to all enemies within 8 meters, which is a pretty good AoE.
That's a huge burst for an AoE attack.
Yeah.
Like very few AoE attacks deal that much damage all at once.
Exactly. And so it's just added this kind of extra layer that works really well without me having to change the playstyle at all, really. You know, I was already putting Yari, was already casting Rally on my back bar, and it does work on the back bar, which I was very excited about. You throw your Rally up, you switch back to the front bar, you do jabs, and you can just see those stacks building up. And it's extra damage, and then you just kind of save that AoE up for a good situation, and then you drop that AoE. And it works really well. The other piece that I run with this set is the Celine's monster set. And that's once again just kind of a nice burst AoE. But this build I finished out, and I've been doing a lot of battlegrounds with this build. And it's been effective so far. So I've been really pleased with kind of how every piece has fit really well with this character.
Yeah, really nice. I could see that Vatishran two-hander working really great for a dual wield front bar, because dual wield heavy attacks, I think that's probably the fastest firing heavy attack in the game. So like they're really easy to land those dual wield heavy attacks. Yeah. So I bet that plays really nicely with that. And yeah, Vatishran, a lot of AoE damage. Jabs, a lot of AoE damage. The Celine's, a lot of AoE damage. Like you have a ton of AoE bursts. I bet you could probably get like a couple of kills simultaneously pretty easily with this guy. Yeah.
And then the other 5-piece set that I'm running is the Dragon Guard Elites, and this is just another one that when you deal damage to the side of an enemy or their front, you can build up 5 stacks to just get your crit up. And that's kind of where a lot of the damage of this build comes from, is that it's got a lot of weapon damage and a lot of crit. So it's got 4,600 weapon damage fully buffed, and no CP gets up to 70% crit. So real high crit level. And so that's kind of where the main damage comes from. And that works really well with that Briarheart. But that said, I'm kind of 50-50 on with the build, but it's been working out really well so far.
Yeah, always a fan of the StamPlar. I always want to hear what's going on with that, just so maybe I can get some ideas for my StamPlar as well. Although it's hard to imagine you making any changes to Betsy. She's super duper locked in.
Betsy's working real well lately.
When she works at all, I haven't been logging in with her for the last week or so, but it's only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time.
Yeah, well, we've managed to fill up some time talking about builds and stuff here. I was kind of worried about this episode just because, like I was saying in the beginning, there's nothing going on news-wise, and I haven't had a lot of opportunity to play this week because I've had a company in from out of town, and so I was worried that this is going to be like a 15-minute long episode or something.
We've always got our theorycraft. We've always got something.
Once we get to talking about builds, we can keep it rolling for a while. So let's move on to emails, which, all right, I won't trick you this week.
You're not tricking me this week. I'm not going to fall for it this week.
There are no emails this week. But if you would like to send us an email, you can email us at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. That's scrolling with an I-N, no G, scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything at all, as long as you're polite. We also have a guild in the game for PCNA. It's called Stoon's Goons. And really the main reason I plug Stoon's Goons at the end of every episode is just because we're so proud of the name that we just want to say it at least once an episode. So Stoon's Goons is the name of the guild. We're basically a social guild with a bit of a PvP focus, but really we do a little bit of everything. Very chill, very relaxed, very, very non-toxic. It basically, the vibe that you're getting on the podcast here is pretty much the vibe of the guild. So come on and join us if you'd like. You can request us to invite you to the guild by sending us an email, scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up in-game. I'm at Ket Sparrow Hawk. Davies is at Starjumper. Just say hello or whatever. And I think that brings us to the end of our podcast episode, right?
I think that's it.
This is our 40th episode. Can you believe we've made it this far?
40.
Number 40. Last week was 39, so I'm pretty sure 40 comes next, right?
Yeah. That midlife crisis is just around the corner for us.
Yep.
We don't know. Of course, maybe some of our builds this week is part of that midlife crisis for the podcast.
Maybe your new stamina warden build is
that's the midlife crisis right there.
That's what it is.
He doesn't want to be alone. He's getting he's just inviting everybody to the party.
Trying to recapture his youth. Going back to his original build.
Just walks around with the party. He's going back to his dream when he was a young, below 50 character.
Yeah, now that he can afford it, I appreciate everyone listening this far. I hope you join us for the next 40 episodes. Please keep coming back. This is such a good time doing this. We enjoy doing this so much. We don't make any money. We make no attempt to monetize this in any way whatsoever. We just love ESO. We love talking about it. And really what started all this is just that we used to work together, and every day during our lunch break, we would just talk about ESO like 5 days a week. We would sit there and talk about ESO for an hour.
The original scrolling days.
Yeah. So why not just record those conversations? So that's kind of where we're at. But anyway, I've been saying goodbye, I think, for like 10 minutes here. So
keep it going. How long how long a goodbye can be? That's a sign that the episode, we've hit 40. The older someone gets, their goodbyes just get really long and drawn out.
Yeah. It happens. You get old, you get rambling. I can speak firsthand from experience. But okay, anyway, that's the end of episode number 40. Please join us again next time for episode 41. We'll see you then. Snap. 3, 2, 1.
Boom.
Sweet. All right. We are officially podcasting right now.
For realsies.
Say something entertaining. Go. Too late. You lost them.
It's over.
We lost half our audience just then.
Oh gosh.
You got to get with it, man. You got to step it up.
You got to be quicker than that. Drop in.